Takehiko Inoue asks, is death all that awaits a samurai? I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. Today, I want to talk about some manga that I read. I am back on that manga grind. And I want to talk about a new series that I haven't explored before. It's not just Berserk, although it is Berserk adjacent. And today's book is all about samurai and death and those such things. I am referring to Vagabond by Takehiko Inoue, which was originally published, at least these first 3 volumes, from 1998 to 2008. And this is an interesting cover with Takezo or Musashi as he's later known. And then on the back you have a beautiful woman, I think. There's a lot of androgyny and whatnot going on. A lot of ill-defined gender stuff. Also, I should note that Takezo is based on a real person. Inoue said that he doesn't really write informational literature, but when he does try to do it, he wants to make it entertaining. And so for those who don't know, including me, Takehiko Inoue is a manga writer predominantly. He's a Japanese writer. He's been writing since the 1990s. He's also credited with bringing the popularity of American basketball to Japan, at least according to his Wikipedia page. I don't know how true that is. That sounds like a fact that would be made up. And how would I find the exact author who's credited with bringing a big sport over to Japan? That's strange, but I think it might be true. He's written at least 2 mangas in the 90s and afterwards that are based on basketball, and I'm surprised there's just one manga that is about basketball. I know there's sports manga and whatnot and sports anime, but I didn't know there was a basketball manga. I'd be interested in checking it out. I think it's called Slam Dunk. It certainly seems interesting and weird. Definitely might fit in with the main goal of this channel. Very interested to learn more about this author. Also, I will note this is 3 volumes, and I was going to talk about it one at a time, but I found that the stories kind of stop at unusual places for me to do that. And I'll also end up spoiling a lot of this, so if you end up wanting to check it out, definitely go do that now and then come back and watch this video afterwards so that we can have a discussion about this. But without further ado, let's talk about Vagabond. I will do a summary of volumes 1 through 3 and then do an analysis, and we'll move on from there. So volume 1 of Vagabond begins by focusing on Shenmen Takezo. He is a samurai who is on the losing side of the Battle of Sekigahara. And he's not really wounded or anything, so he gets up off the battlefield, and he's found by his friend Matahachi. And as they're walking away, trying to go home, they get into a fight with other samurai. Matahachi goes pretty slow, he's more careful, but Takezo is very ruthless and aggressive in the fight. And even some might say samurai, and he manages to kill that samurai. They both kind of collapse because they're exhausted, and they're taken care of by Akumi and Oko, who are 2 thieves on the battlefield, who have run afoul of the Sujakazi brigands, who are the other thieves who don't like that they're stealing from the battlefield. They come to Oko's house, and Takezo fights and kills many of these brigands, which draws the ire of the gang's leader. It should also be noted that these brigands want to rape Oko and Kumi, which is not that great. And then during the night, Matahachi pretends to be Takezo to be with Oko, even though he has a fiance, and Oko can kind of sense who he is in the dark, which worries Matahachi. And then later, Takezo runs into some other brigands, and he calls for Matahachi to help, but he's having sex in the nearby forest, and even decides to run away with Oko in order for them to be together. And so Takezo has to kill the rest of the brigands, including one of the leaders, and then he returns home to where he and Matahachi lived, the village. But he has to hide because some soldiers from the rival side are looking for him. and they begin closing in. Matahachi's family, especially his grandmother, doesn't like that Takezo is showing up alone, especially when he kind of drew Matahachi onto the battlefield in the first place. That he's the whole reason he joined up. And when Takezo tells the grandmother that Matahachi loves with a woman, she's especially unhappy. He is taking a shower in her sort of outhouse area, and she calls for the soldiers, and they begin closing in on Takezo while he's naked. And as that volume 1 comes to a close, he notes, you're going to have to kill me, but I will kill you first. Thus, this leads us into volume 2. Takezo fights a bunch of soldiers, killing a lot of them. He's called a demon. He runs into the priest Takeuan, who says that Takezo is afraid of people, and that's why even though he says he's fearless, he has to be afraid of something, and Takeuan says it must be people. And then he gets into a fight with Tsujikaze Kohoe, who is the brother of the original brigands, but he is playing around with Takezo, so he's not really serious there, but he still seems to want to kill him. And then Takeuan confronts the town captain Aoki, who demands to know why he's using all of the citizens to find Takezo, and says that he should be ashamed and commit seppuku. And he also notes that he's associated with the Himeji Castle, which is the local lord, and that he can get him into trouble. Meanwhile, Otsu, who is Matahachi's fiance, catches Takezo while he's in the forest because Otsu and Takeuan are looking for him. She asks about Matahachi. He doesn't really give her answers, but she's very sad and frustrated. And I think Takeuan sees that maybe Otsu and Takezo are made for each other. But using this as an opportunity, Takeuan ties Takezo to a tree. He gives a lecture to Takezo, talking about how Takezo is demanding that he be freed so he can have a warrior's death, but Takezo never gives him the same sort of opportunities, the same sort of freedom to the people he kills. So he's kind of a hypocrite in that regard, at least in Takeuan's eyes. He's cut from the tree by Kohoe, but Kohoe is scared away by Takeuan. And then Takeuan takes Takezo to a meadowy type place, talks with Takezo, and Takezo says he wants to die. There's a lot swimming in his head about his family, about his struggles growing up, how he sort of got into a fight with his father, who viewed him as a threat to his samurai leadership. And I think it's implied that Takezo killed his father. But through all of the struggle, it seems that Takezo has gone through a rebirth. This leads us into Vagabond Volume 3. Takezo at this point seems to be in a better place, and he's rechristed, rebirthed as Miyamoto Musashi. He says he can't really come back to this village anymore because people are looking for him, and he says he wants to be roaming around Vagabond, trying to prove himself to everyone around. He ends up going to Kyoto and challenging Yoshioka Seijuro, who owns a school for samurai, and he ends up getting in a big fight. Meanwhile, we see that Matahachi has left Oko because she's been making fun of him and challenging his masculinity and whatnot, and he's just roaming about near this Yoshioka school too. He pretty much overhears a lot of what's going on in the school, but can't tell that Takezo, who's now Musashi, is in that school. Seijuro's second, Denshichiro, ends up challenging Musashi at this point. And they get into a big fight, which even wounds Musashi. He's hit pretty hard, but it seems like he's going to keep fighting until he dies. And I think Matahachi senses this, and he just decides to burn down the school, whether accidentally or purposely, as a distraction. And as the school is burning down, Denshichiro vows another fight will take place, and Musashi even leaves and runs away. But as he's running away, Matahachi sees him, calls for him, but he doesn't turn around. And there's going to be a reunion between the two eventually, but that's where Volume 3 leaves off. In terms of analysis, there is quite a bit to talk about with this Vagabond series thus far. One of the main themes that Takehiko seems to be talking about is that of animality. Takezo is depicted as beast-like. He's causing carnage with a sword, just cold, unfeeling in his eyes. The art is really great here because it highlights just how aggressive he's being, how he's covered in blood and he's determined to kill everyone who is a threat to him. And even the other samurai, some of the soldiers, call him a demon. Like they're not certain that he's human. He's just slaughtering through waves and waves and waves of them. Kind of like Guts in Berserk, whereas Guts had a very large sword, Takezo just has a regular sized sword. I feel like that's a penis joke somewhere there, but he doesn't. He's just very skilled in sword play, and so he comes off as a bit demonic because this doesn't seem like a thing another human should really do. But there is a good question to ask, and what is wrong with Takezo or Musashi here? He seems to be like very aggressive, very ruthless, very like something's not really there behind his eyes. He's just killing because he wants to be the best. He wants to be invincible under the sun. But, not a lot of people just kill people for the glory of being the best or whatnot. Although there is some cultural aspect to that in Japan. And so, like, it does seem like there's something wrong with him. Even Takeuan notices it. Like, this dude's just going around killing people and acting like a raging feral. There has to be something up with him. And I think a lot of it has to do with his family, especially his upbringing. Kind of like Guts, his parents weren't there for him. He couldn't be around his mother because his father wanted to train him as a samurai, and then when he got old enough, he had to challenge his father, or his father challenged him because he viewed him as a threat. And you can see that kind of upbringing would only teach you to answer every problem you encounter with violence. You wouldn't really talk about it because if you talk, you die, which is unfortunate. But I do have to wonder, like, does Takehiko see him as a hero here, like as a heroic figure? Because I certainly don't. This is kind of a devastating critique of a samurai. I think that like this person only answers their problems. They only address everything with more violence, and that's not really heroic in a sense. But it still does seem like Takehiko considers him heroic, which might have to do with the fact that this is based on a real cultural hero. It might have something to do with this is what masculinity is like in Japan, and so me critiquing it is maybe critiquing masculinity in Japan. I don't really see, or I don't really like see how that's like fair in a way, but also it's important to criticize this kind of depiction of masculinity because too much of it just leads people to become detached from their families and whatnot. Takehiko is also talking about death here. To Takezo, death is all that there is. There's only dying. There's only kill or be killed. There's nothing else that the world can really offer a man like him. Allow me to read you an interesting quote from this. "Get it over with and kill me. Why put me through this humiliation? Kill or be killed, cut people down and die in mortal combat. That's who I am. I've always been ready to pay the consequences. Kill me." And that's just a fascinating quote. It's just one of the many quotes that you see from Takezo, where he's like, this is all there is. Either I kill somebody in combat or I die myself. Either I'm lifted up and celebrated, or I just die. There's nothing else that there is for me, which is a harsh and sad life. That this is all that he can really see. It's very nihilistic. We see that with Guts at the beginning of the Berserk series. As I said before, it's kill or be killed, which is certainly no way to live. But as Takeuan notes, like he shows this selfishness of thinking this. Because if all there is death, then why would Takezo need to be cut down from the tree that he's kind of tied to? Because if death is inevitable, then this is his death. This is all that he gets. Like, he doesn't get tied or cut down. He doesn't get to fight. He doesn't get like that warrior's death that he so craves, because this is the inevitable end that he always knew is coming for him. So it's a sense of selfishness that he would want any other, given that he didn't give these other people a choice in the matter. So even by Takeuan is showing that Takezo's own words aren't really true, that he must not believe this if he wants to be cut down, that there's a belief in maybe survival. And again, as I mentioned, this seems to be learned behavior from like the father in this case, and so that's why I'm hoping Takehiko like is leaning towards the learned behavior aspect of this, and that maybe there'll be a healthy balance for Takezo rather than just seeing fighting and glory as the only aspect of this story. And that there is a potential for light in Takezo because it seems like he's nestled in darkness right now, given his upbringing, given that all he knows is life on the battlefield. It can make anyone dark, anyone like not be really potential for anything outside of the world, or like you wouldn't view you view the world very nihilistically in that way. It's also important to talk about the characterization of Takezo and Matahachi. Takezo is cold and calculating and suicidal, ready to run headstrong into any fight, regardless of how the outcome may be. Because either he wants to survive, or as we see in Volume 3, he wants to become invincible under the sun. And so he wants to be the very best. And again, let's like kill or be killed in that regard. But as we see, like that, he's willing to like deal with the wounds in order to get there. But of course, eventually something's going to kill you. You're going to meet someone who's more powerful than you, or you're just going to be unlucky. And as I said, like that's similar to Guts, because Guts was suicidal in that way. But whereas Guts was cold and unfeeling, but also willing to laugh at the absurdity of the world, the terror in the world, Takezo really doesn't feel any other emotion there. Like he's only allowing him to feel that lust for being the best. He's only allowing him to feel like the need for survival. He doesn't have any other expression on his face, which makes it even sadder and more scary, because if all this dude is doing is trying to kill to become the best, or trying to kill to survive, like he's not allowing himself to live any other life. And this is like, if that's all you experience, you're not gonna view life as important. It's gonna be seen as disposable, and you can justify killing anyone in that regard. And then if you compare him to like Matahachi, who is dumb, cowardly, willing to abscond for a fight, very given to pleasures and whatnot, like he's not very brave or noble like Takezo. But there is a potential for change and him becoming better and willing to stand up for others. He even sets the school on fire in order to help Takezo get away later. So there is a potential for change, but he seems very much like a doofus who is only ever going to be second to Takezo, and maybe that might lead him to do jealous and bitter things towards him. But there also seems to be a commentary here on who is more heroic. Takehiko wants you to see Takezo as more heroic, noble, than someone like Matahachi. So it's a commentary on masculinity again. That's what it seems like to me. You might say, oh, it's just a sword fight. It's swords and samurai kind of manga, but there's always something deeper to it, and I do think it's a sense of masculinity and who you should be taking after. But again, that's kind of difficult given that Takezo is cold and unfeeling. You don't really want to be like him, and maybe it's also saying that the right way to be is the healthy middle right there. Maybe fight for what you believe in, but at the same time, be willing to understand your limits or something like that. Other things that I like, as you've seen throughout this video, there is a lot of good art. It's colorized, but it's also more focused on the face, whereas the Berserk series is focused on maybe the sword fights, the devastation that is taking place, in sort of a Renaissance view of that art. But here, it's more focused on the face, the utter sort of determination on Takezo's face, or any other character. It's pretty fascinating. And then you also do see a dichotomy versus how the views on like rural people versus urban people. A lot of rural discrimination or prejudice taking place in this, and that leads people to underestimate Takezo because he comes from a rural place. Maybe that might already exist in current Japan or something like that. I do think Takehiko is trying to offer a little bit of a commentary, but it does feel superficial at times. And there's a couple things about this volume, volume 1 to 3, that aren't so great. It does feel like it's mostly monologues, whereas the Berserk series is people talking and then a bunch of fights taking place around that. Here, there are fights, but it also feels like the characters are just monologuing towards one another the whole time. Like Volume volume 3 is Takezo finding the school and then talking with the Yoshioka people. Like, sure, he fights them, but he's also like monologuing about like who's going to be the best, becoming the best under the sun, becoming invincible under the sun, just going on and on and on about that. So it just feels like mostly monologues in that way, in an unrealistic kind of manner. And in that way, it also kind of feels like there's no stakes because the characters are just talking. Like, what's at hand? What is at the center of this? Why should we care about this? And even more, it does seem like Takezo is incapable of really being hurt. He launches headfirst into each fight. He's fighting like dozens upon dozens of soldiers, and he doesn't really lose, but maybe that's because the biggest threat to him is himself, the way he sees and views the world and views himself. That would be interesting, but there are no stakes from him fighting a bunch of those soldiers. The Berserk series is kind of similar to that, but it does feel like there are stakes because Guts can die at any time. He's constantly wounded, and he's fighting huge, humongous demons, and this might be the demon that finally gets him. But that's not really present in this series. So I do think adding more stakes, more like substance to those fights would make the series a little bit better. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Vagabond by Takehiko Inoue, which I thought was pretty good. Certainly not the best manga that I've read. I haven't read much manga, but not far from the worst. I know I compared this a lot to the Berserk series, and that's really because the Berserk series is the closest approximation that I can make. And it's, again, some of the only manga that I've read. So it's my basis of comparison. And I know that's unfair because nothing really matches Berserk, but it's still important to, compare and contrast against what you're finding there. And that's not to say that this is like less than Berserk or anything like that. It's still very much fun to read. I enjoyed it. I liked the art. I liked what was going on in the story. I would have liked a little bit more substance there. But this is a pretty good start, and I probably will encounter or go seek out like more volumes in this series as time goes on. So I definitely recommend it to you out there. It's probably one of the better reads you might encounter, especially if you like manga and sword fighting and samurai based stuff. If you have anything to say about my review here, let me know in the comments below. Would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this series, this author, or this manga if they don't already know. And don't forget to join the Discord as well. Link to it in the description if you want to have further conversations about manga, books, TV, movies, that kind of stuff. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and samurai travels. Farewell.